So my final moan for today is, can't remember what it is. Can't have been much of a moan, can it? Hello everybody. Thanks for checking in once again. It's a cold morning here today in London. We got freezing fog going on. And I've come out nice and early in the morning to shoot it, and I've come out to shoot it with one of my favourite, if I can untangle it, one of my favourite film cameras, which is this one, the lovely Leica 3. Beautiful little camera. I think this is probably my favourite film camera, apart from all my other favourite film cameras. It's hard to keep track really. I seem to have shot quite a bit of film recently, of recent weeks, actually rather more than usual. And there are several things I love about shooting film, but there are also one or two things that I really don't like about shooting film. So today I'm going to share those with you. I'm going to talk about 5 things I love and 5 things I don't like too much about film photography. So buckle up, come with me, come with an old hippie for a walk in the park, and let's have at it. So what don't I like about film photography? Well, I'll tell you one thing I don't like. I don't like the fact that there aren't any new film cameras being produced. Well, except for the Leica cameras, that is, and they're rather expensive objects that are designed to be desirable. I think they're good cameras, of course, but they're also designed to be desirable objects and luxury objects. And it's a shame that manufacturers like Nikon and Canon and Olympus, well, Olympus don't really exist anymore. They do exist, but they've gone to a separate company. They're all digital. But it really is a shame somebody isn't producing a new, simple, maybe just an all mechanical film camera. That would be nice. I know there were plans for one. Up until not long ago, somebody had a design for a modular SLR. It always looked to me to be a bit too complex. I don't know what you thought. Let me know your thoughts on that, maybe, if you know the one I'm talking about. But it always looked a little bit too complex and over-designed to me. And I don't know whether the tooling still exists with camera companies. Maybe it's still there. I know Nikon did reproduce in the 2000s their rangefinder, their SP rangefinder, and there were some limited editions of that sold. So that tooling was still there at that point. Maybe there's some other tooling. There must be a manufacturer somewhere with tooling who could make a simple, a capable film camera, but a simple one as well. So manufacturers, I don't know. It seems to me that any manufacturer making a new film camera now would clean up, because nobody else is doing it apart from Leica. There is no affordable option for new film cameras. So maybe that's an avenue some manufacturers could explore. I very much don't like the loss of developing and printing services at reasonable cost. And cost is a thing that's happened to film cameras, film photography recently. Rather large increases in cost that, okay, I can understand some of what's involved. Market forces being one, although the market for film photography has massively picked up of late, so I'm not sure that's really a valid one. Increasing cost of chemicals, supply lines, blah, 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 blah. All the usual things that are trotted out. But I do wonder whether there is scope for reducing those prices, because developing and printing costs are excessive, in my opinion. Not only that, but there are a few places who can develop and print well. Quite often I've put films in for developing and they've come back with scratches on them, bubbles on the negatives, watermarks where they've not been dried properly. So I don't know, I think there is a case for training. I think there's a case for reducing those prices. I think there's a case for getting the whole film industry, back to a point where it's affordable, a point where it's more affordable than it is now. And I think, not that I'm a great business brain or I'd have a lot more money than I do now, but I do think that a drop in prices of developing would encourage more people to develop more film. That seems to make sense to me, and with the increasing size of the market, well, there's no reason that couldn't happen, in my view. Right, that's moan number 2 out of the way. What else can I whine about? I'll tell you what else I can whine about. Moan number 3 is actually related to moan number 2, and it's the cost of film. Yeah, I've talked about this before, but film, like developing and printing, has increased in cost massively. I don't see any reason for it to have increased quite to the extent, to the levels it has done. Not long ago I bought a roll of Kodak Gold, 36 exposure, 200 ISO Kodak Gold, and I bought it from Snappy Snaps in Holborn, a place you wouldn't expect to be the cheapest to get film from, but it cost me 15 quid with developing included, and that was in probably May or June or thereabouts. And I thought that was reasonable, maybe a little steep, but reasonable. Recent cost increases have been quite stunning, and they've seen the cost of a roll of Kodak Gold increase to as much as 25 quid, and you've then got to get it developed. Black and white film is still reasonably priced, though even that's seen some increases, so I do tend to stick to black and white, but I'd like to shoot more colour. I love shooting colour film. But there we go. It's just got a little too expensive to use it as much as I would like. So let's hope that can come back down to earth. I don't suppose it will, but you never know. Maybe somebody will start up manufacturing for a reasonable cost. Not impossible. We shall see. Alright, so continuing my odyssey of whinging, not only has the cost of developing gone up and the cost of film stocks themselves gone up, there's a much decreased range of films available now than there was even a year ago. I mean, not long ago we lost Kodachrome. What was that? Maybe about 10 years ago. And films have just been decreasing in range since then, and it seems like every week these days a new film is discontinued. I read this morning Fuji Color 400, or is it Fuji Color Superior? One of the Fuji Color films, 400 ISO, just read this morning, has just been discontinued. Fuji Color 200, which was my absolute favourite film. I love those cool tones that you get from that film stock, or got from that film stock. That's been discontinued. It seems pretty much all we're left with in colour film is either Kodak Gold, which Fuji are now using, repackaging and selling it as Fuji Color 200, or cinema film, which is has a remjet backing on it, so that takes all sorts of special processes to get that off, over and above what you already have to do with ordinary processing. So honestly, I don't know. It makes me wonder where film stocks will go. I mean, what happens if Kodak goes under again? Or what happens if they think to themselves, oh, we're not shifting too much of this film, we've not made enough millions with it this year, we're just going to shut down. What happens then? That leaves us all in a spot of bother, I think. So my final moan for today is, can't remember what it is. Can't be much of a moan, can it? Let's have a look. Oh yes, I know what it is. Crappy kit for sale on eBay or anywhere else, come to that. Film camera prices have increased recently, so quite a lot of people are getting on the bandwagon that weren't on the bandwagon before. And of course the prices of all things film have shot up, and people who I don't know might find a crappy old point and shoot somewhere, or a nice SLR that's all mouldy and rusty and hasn't been shot for 30 years. You know, all of the crappy gear is sold on, and sometimes it's advertised as working when it isn't. Sometimes it's advertised as, oh, I don't know if this works or not, which, you know, I always find kind of difficult to swallow, because it's not difficult to wind a camera on the lever and press the button to see if there's a click. So there's a lot of very, very shoddy goods on eBay. Sometimes it's deliberate, you know, people are just trying to make a fast buck. Sometimes, you know, people don't know much about photography, and they don't know that things aren't in good order. But, you know, whatever the case, however it comes to us, there is a lot of crappy gear out there. Some of it has come my way. That's inevitable, because I've bought quite a lot of cameras and lenses over the past few years. I always send it back. Do send it back, of course, if you get a camera that doesn't work, or if you've got a lens that's full of dust or mold or fungus. They're very difficult to repair, and if you're not experienced with camera repair, you're unlikely to be able to get to grips with it first time around, especially if you're repairing a camera. It's not too difficult to take out the front element of a lens or the rear element and give them a clean, but don't be tempted to take on a camera repair if it's anything other than very, 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 very simple, because if you're not used to it, it most likely will go wrong. Send it back, either get a refund or get a replacement. Right, if you've made it this far, well done, and welcome to the second and rather less whiny part of the video, in which I'm going to tell you all about the things I love about film photography. And these things for me are the delight, these are the magic, these are what make it just a unique art form, something that cannot be reproduced by digital photography, a unique picture making experience. And the first of those things is the fact that the cameras, or many of them anyway, are very, very simple. Cameras like this one, this is an entirely mechanical camera. It's got speeds from 1 second to 1/500th. It's got a nice lens on it. That's the Summitar f2 50mm. It's got a rangefinder focusing device, and that is all. That's all it has. No batteries, no light meter, no fancy exposure modes, no nothing. Just you, a box, a shutter and an aperture. And that's all it is. And a camera like that doesn't have to be a Leica like this one. It can be a Zorki 4, for example, or a Fed 4. Any of the older mechanical cameras are very, very simple, and they will make you any kind of image that you want. There is no limit to the kind of image these cameras can make. These cameras will make you at least as competent and capable and good an image as the fanciest and most up-to-date digital camera will make, and I love them for that. That's a beautiful thing, the fact that you can make very, very fine images with a very, very simple machine. That, to me, that's a delightful thing, you know, and that's one of the reasons I love them. Another reason I love film photography is it's fluttered out of my head like the little birds of the firmament. Let me consult my notes. Electronic notes. We're teched up today. I know what it was. Tactile. It's the tactile nature of film photography that I love. For example, loading the film. You've got to open the canister, you've got to unwind the film from the canister, you've got to thread it around the teeth, you've got to make sure it locks, you've got to put it into the locking tab of the take-up spool. You're just so much more in touch with the medium. You can actually hold and feel and touch the medium that stores the image, i.e. the film. So this is not a remote experience. Digital cameras are, digital photography is one step removed from film photography. It's like a simulation of film photography in one sense anyway, and it lacks that tactile nature. You never touch your digital sensor, and if you do, you've got to get it properly cleaned. You don't really know where that image is being stored. You know, it's ones and zeros on a memory card somewhere, but that's all you know. You can't see at any point the actual image that you've shot on that storage medium, whereas on film you can. It's there, it's tactile, it's physical, and it's present. And that brings me in touch with photography to a far greater extent than digital does. I love the fact that a mechanical camera will work anywhere. It doesn't need any batteries, it doesn't need any charging. It uses power, but the power is put into springs by your hand. It uses muscle power. You know, as long as you can wind the camera with your fingers or with your hand, it's never going to run out of power. So which camera would you take, for example, on an Arctic expedition? Would it be an electronic DSLR or a mirrorless? I don't think so, because the batteries would last only a very, very short time in very, very low temperatures. For those kinds of conditions, you would need something a little more reliable and whose power needs are a little more predictable. For those conditions, you'd need a mechanical camera. This is a passive technology. It works by light falling upon the film. It doesn't need any electronics. It doesn't need any extra help to achieve that. So that's another thing that I really like about these cameras, is that they really will work absolutely anywhere. Another thing I really like about these old machines, like this old Leica here, that's still been working fine in all this very, very cold weather. One thing I really like about them is the fact that they still work. Now, sure, any machine is going to need some maintenance over the years, and no doubt this Leica of mine has had some maintenance over the years, but I do love to use old technology in the way it was designed for. I love to keep it alive, I love to keep it going, and I love to still use it alongside modern stuff. I love modern technology too, but I do love to keep the old stuff going. That's why I love old wind-up gramophones. That's why I've got an old Rover 2000 sitting over there at home, which I use occasionally. That's why I've got an old 1930s radio that I love listening to Radio 4 on. is because I love to use the old technology. It just gives me a buzz. Consumer capitalism likes to move designs on very, very quickly, unnecessarily quickly in many ways, and that's understandable because companies want to keep sales going, but a lot of the time there's no real need to introduce new models, and that's a lot of the reason why I like to keep the old tech going, is because it's still capable, it's still in many respects as good as the new stuff. And this Leica 3, as well as my collection of Zorkis, Feds, my Olympuses and all the other old cameras that I have, I love using those for that same reason. And then finally, the final reason that I really love film photography is that I love the machines themselves. This is a miracle of engineering. It's a miracle of springs, gears and levers, and it's made in a tiny little package, and it still works as well as it did in 1936. So I love the actual machines. I love the cameras themselves. They're not just a means to an end to me. They are a source of joy in themselves. And if that sounds silly, well, maybe it is. But that's how it is. I love them. I love the way that the mechanism all comes together when you push the shutter button. I love the way that the gears and little levers and other little things that depend on each other for operation all work in their exact sequence. In short, a camera is a fascinating machine to me, and I never really lost that fascination for them that began when I was 3 years old, really, when I saw my dad's camera, when I first realised what a camera was and what my dad was doing when he was kneeling down in front of us with this funny looking machine in front of his face. As soon as I realised that was a machine for taking pictures, I fell in love with the actual machines. I was fascinated by them, and I still am. So those, ladies and gentlemen, and well done if you've stuck this far through this video, those are my 5 reasons to love film photography, and my 5 dislikes of the medium also. And I guess that's all I've got to say on the subject for now. Many, many thanks for watching this video, and I do hope it's been useful, educational, or just enjoyable to sit down and listen to a discussion on photography. Please do all those YouTube type things. Chuck us a sub if you can. Like, subscribe, ring the bell, do all those other things that one is supposed to do on YouTube. Many thanks to subscribers. Many thanks for your support through your subscriptions, and many thanks also to patrons, without whom this channel could not do what it continues to do. So many, many thanks to patrons for your support. So that's it from me for now. If you like the content on this channel, you might consider becoming a patron yourself over at www.patreon.com/Zenography. Thank you very much for watching, and if you're not too busy next week, please do join me for a spot more Zenography. Cheerio all.